set in Jerusalem's wall. I picked up the end of William Blake's Golden String in 1965 at Mrs. Scott's calculus class. As I left class one day at UT Knoxville, she stopped me and said, "I want you to teach the next section of our text tomorrow." I was a sophomore. It's on three-dimensional vectors. I still remember that lecture. I didn't recognize it for what it was until much later after becoming a psychologist, an emotional trauma. I thought it was a grand adventure. The next day, I distinguished myself. I gave one of the worst lectures in the history of higher education. It was winter and the windows were stuck shut. The radiator pumped out oppressive heat throughout the hour, and I droned on, clanging and spewing hot air like the radiator. People nodded off. No one actually fell from his chair, but on occasion it was touch and go. As I left class, Mrs. Scott stopped me, looked me in the eye, swallowed her bubble gum, and said one of the biggest lies probably ever uttered out loud in academia. She said, "Not too bad." So I began to follow my golden string, which led me through teaching computer programming at the University of Tennessee, nuclear physics in the Naval Nuclear Power Program, and eventually, while at VCU for 40 years, courses in introductory psychometrics, counseling theories, couple counseling, religion, and even forgiveness. That golden string was populated with an incredible number of graduate students, postdocs, and later colleagues who were also friends and even a second family. Each of them taught me valuable things. I always felt like I learned more than I taught. In the 1990s, I worked hand in hand with Dale Berry on religion, Mike McCullough, Steve Sandage, and Jen Ripley, and Nathaniel Wade, and others on forgiveness. In fact, I see Taro back there. And in the first decade of the 2000s, Nathaniel and Jack Berry bridged the 1990s and 2000s. Starting about 2005, Josh Hook, Donnie Davis, Daryl Van Tongeren, and Brandon Griffin were joined by Caroline Lavelock, Chelsea Greer, Aubrey Gardner, and others as we continued together to wind in that golden string. And after I retired in 2017 and no longer had a lab, I relied on an extreme generosity from former students and other colleagues like Lauren Toussaint, Richard Cowden, Joe Chin, and many others. I was kind of like Oliver in Charles Dickens' book. "Please, sir, may I have a co-authorship?" They often generously invited me to join them in their scientific adventures and to be part of their personal lives. A threefold cord is not easily broken, says the writer of Ecclesiastes. My threefold string was made up of one strand of students and colleagues. Second strand was generosity of my God in keeping me close in the faith despite inevitable tragedies we all go through in life. And the third was the unwavering love of my wife Kirby for our 54 years of marriage. Near the end of the 1990s, I was privileged for God to direct me into the widening forgiveness movement. Already, Bob Enright and his talented graduate students, Suzanne Friedman, Roddy Almabook, and others, had blazed a trail that we initiated by Mike and Steve, Jen, Nathaniel, and Jack Berry had followed. But I believe that in a single moment, God really made the forgiveness movement widespread and generously included me. Here's the story. Early 1997, I was at a scientific conference funded by the John Templeton Foundation. I was late to dinner. I sat at a table alone while the others sat at circular tables having scintillating conversations. And I thought, I deserve this. I was late for dinner. I'll just eat worms tonight. And then in walks this button-down guy, and he sits down beside me and he goes, "Hi, I'm Chuck Harper. I'm the new executive director of the John Templeton Foundation. This is my first day, and I thought I'd just come and talk to the scientists here and see what they thought the JTF ought to be funding." And I thought, well, gosh, have you ever thought of a big initiative on forgiveness? Well, they were already funding myself and Bob Enright on large projects, but I thought that this had potential to open up the field. A month later, I was asked to co-chair with David Myers the JTF initiative that started the widespread research in forgiveness. My wife, Kirby, my graduate students and colleagues, and my Lord, who often leads in surprising ways, I've found, have been my carefully woven threefold cord that makes up my golden string, which is all about, in a word, love. I'm now further along in my career, about mid-career, I'd say. But as Kirby and I face her chronic physical struggles at my cancer, I do continue treatment when I return from Seattle. Malcolm Muggeridge's memoir has great meaning for me. Malcolm Muggeridge was a writer and a television personality. He said, "I remember my own first glimpse of Blake's golden string, glittering in the mud of willfulness. I stooped to pick it up, supposing it to be a coin or some golden object, only to find that it was a golden string, which I thereupon began to wind into a ball. Thenceforth, I often lost it, treading it back into the mud, wearing dark glasses, losing sight of it for days on end, but always somehow finding it again. I have it still wound into a monstrous ball, though now I'm too feeble to carry it far. Even so, I remain confident that before long, with tottering steps and sweating under its weight, I shall indeed find myself at heaven's gate with Jerusalem's wall built into it." My grad students and colleagues, my wife and my God, have led me through my adult life following that golden string. My hopes and prayers are that you, who are hearing this, will each experience the generosity and the love that I have, and that you too, if you've not already done so, will find your golden string and follow it where it leads. Thank you so much for this honor to share the stage with these wonderful scholars and to stand before you and celebrate our joint adventures together. Thank you.